today I have the honor of being here with Hyungsoo, who is the founder and creator of Eone Timepieces. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. Very excited to have a fun conversation with you.
That's great. So I have had the opportunity to have a E1 timepiece for the last 3 years. And when I first heard about the timepiece, I was actually trying to help a blind colleague of mine find a Braille watch. And so when I went online and started looking at different timepieces, I came across a video and they were talking about your timepiece, and it was awesome to see. And so I actually went and bought it myself. And so when I started losing my sight, one of the hardest things was, losing different products like my watch, which I I wore every day of my life. And so seeing your timepiece was something that brought back a piece of me. And I'm super excited about it. And I would just love to have you share a little bit about the timepiece and how you came about with it.
Yeah, we started in 2012. And our original goal, of course, was we found out that there's no good watch for people who are visually impaired. All the watches and clocks require vision. So one of my classmates, was blind. And then that's how I found out that, they had to rely on one of those either talking watches or the analog watch that allows you to open the cover glass to touch the hands. But the hands were fragile and the hands moved very easily when you touched them. So it wasn't good. So that's when we started thinking about, wait, there has to be a better way for them to be able to check time, right? Like checking time is one of probably the most, frequent activities that we do as a human being throughout the day. We started with a Braille watch for the blind. I was at MIT at the time, so it wasn't so hard to put together a team with engineers from MIT Engineering School. But while we were interacting with the potential users, who are mostly the blind, we learned that what they wanted was something that everyone else likes. Most of the products they use, it's labeled as products for the blind, right? It's a product for the disabled, and they didn't like that label. Because it focuses attention to their disabilities, right? There are more than billion similarities between people who are blind and the sighted, and there's only one difference. And all the products out there, it focuses on that one difference, right? They feel kind of separated. They feel kind of, excluded from the mainstream, the design, the community. So that's when we switched our approach to create a timepiece that can be well used and liked by, regardless whether you're sighted or blind.
That's awesome. When we think about Global Accessibility Awareness Day, it's really focused on digital accessibility. But when you think about accessibility and design, you talk a little bit about, making a product that's for everyone, but can you just share, what does accessibility mean to you?
So, accessibility is a very broad concept. And, we do inclusive design, universal design, and even those terms were created not so long ago. So everyone has different definitions. When I think about accessibility, one of stereotypes and people have towards the word accessibility, which I don't like, is that they have the tendency to think about as something additional. You have to create something additional. You have to add something additional to make something accessible. And our approach is that no, you don't have to do that. You don't have to spend extra time, energy, and money to make something accessible. You just make, something that works for everyone from the beginning. That is our approach. So, that's why we created a watch that doesn't distinguish, between the sighted and the blind. It's not a watch that we added something onto it to make it accessible. So, to me, accessibility is an inclusion. It's not an addition. It's not an option. So that's the accessibility to me.
That's awesome. I love it. And so, what is one thing that you would like others to kind of take away for others that they can do to make their products and services more accessible?
Thought about, okay, let's make a watch for the blind. Then the first word that we thought about automatically was braille, right? And as I mentioned, we thought it has to be something different. It's something that we add onto the existing products. So breaking that stereotype, breaking that mindset was the hardest. But once we did that, every process was very easy and it was so smooth. And we created something that no one did in the past. And while we could be successful in design community and commercially as well. So I really want our other designers and engineers to really try to break that stereotype and think out of that the box, the stereotype.
Yeah, I love it. So accessibility is not something you need to add on, but something you can build on. So it's something that I think is a great takeaway. So do you have your watch with you right now? Can you show people and kind of
yes,
talk through it? Because I have mine right here, but I'd love to have you show it and kind of even just explain how it works.
So this is the timepiece that we created. So there's a ball bearing rotating on the surface, and then there's another ball bearing rotating on the side. So there's a crown here, and it just works the same way as the regular wristwatch, except that the time is indicated by the two ball bearings instead of the two hands. And you can touch, if you're sighted, you can tell time by either just looking at the position of the ball bearings or by touching the ball bearings. So even though you're sighted, and I use this quite often, if you are in a situation where sometimes it's hard or embarrassing to look down on your wrist to check time, right? For example, in the interviews or dinner with in-laws or during the lecture. So in those situations, I check time. I am able to check time by touching the ball bearings. And if you touch hard, you can slide. It can be dislocated, but just with a gentle shake, it always goes back to the correct time.
Yeah, I love it. I was in a meeting the other day and it was so non-discreet to be able to check the time, and you don't need to embarrass anyone, you don't need to distract anyone, and it's great. And the other thing that I love about the watch is that the watch is so beautiful that people stop to talk to me about it. And so I often talk about how my white cane is sometimes a barrier for people, and sometimes people don't want to talk to me because they don't want the fear of saying the wrong thing. But the watch is a way that is bringing people together. And I think your design is something that is really, really something special, that it has the ability to bring people together. And there's not much that can do that. And I'm so thankful for the work that you've done, and it's awesome. And where can people access and get your watch?
So we are mostly selling our watches online. It's eone-time.com. Our website should be accessible. And as you said, yes, our goal is to connect people instead of disconnecting people. Connecting people by creating one product. The acting of touching the timepiece to check time, it's the same. It's the same experience, regardless whether you're sighted or the blind. So through, that is our goal, and that's why we call it a timepiece, not a watch. Because you don't have to look at it to check time. And when we do the interviews, we tend, to not say it's a watch for the blind. I'm sure you know the reason. We call it, it's a watch for everyone. And about 95%, more than 95% of people who wear our watch or who get our watch, they are sighted. And
Wow.
yeah, we think that's a very healthy ratio, considering the ratio of people who are blind versus the sighted.
Yeah.
Because we want people to be attracted to our timepiece because they like the design and it looks good. It's not because they know our watch, our timepieces. It helps people, who are blind. So we want to break that stereotype.
Well, I think you're doing a great job of breaking down those stereotypes, and again, so I urge everyone to go get your timepiece, e1-time.com. So everyone get connected, connect with others, and join the community. And Hyungsoo, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.